Can applause, right? Thank you very much.
Tough gig, 5 p.m. last presentation. So my name's Scott Treloar. I'm CEO and founder of Noviscient. I used to work in very large banks. Essentially, I'm more of a sort of guerrilla or insurgent. You can't stand these big firms for too long. Get out, try to change the world a little bit. And asset management is a good place to change because everybody is impacted. They've got retirement savings, and we're all trying to figure out how our money today can be worth enough for us in the future. Asset management as an industry exists in a space which is complex and opaque. Right? You don't quite know all that market data, all the instruments, what's really going on, and a complex and opaque environment makes it quite easy for the industry to take advantage of consumers, users. So in a sense, asset management as an industry, it's a lazy industry. You can get away with a lot of things without having to try because, you know, your client will say, how come I had this bad result? And you'll say, well, you know, the market was this and the war happened and oil prices did that and everybody else. So there's no causality or accountability. It's sort of difficult. So the industry ends up looking after itself, but not after the client. So what we're trying to do is to put the client first. How do we put the client first? You have to change something. You have to use technology. And so the way we're doing that is building a digital operating model that will give us a series of advantages that will allow us to put the clients kind of first. Just quickly, my background, I'm an engineer. I did MBA, Quant Finance Masters, I studied for a PhD in finance, did programming from Commodore 64 onwards. But I'm sort of eclectic across a range of sort of skills and capabilities. Let me just quickly duck through. I think for API Days people, the challenge is not so much the technology, it's the industry sector that we're sort of talking about. So I'll give you just a little bit of the challenges of asset management. It's difficult to find and access quality products. You know, where are they? There are more equity mutual funds in the US than there are actually securities, like 8,000 securities, 10,000 mutual funds. How do you select? What do you do? Costs, fees on fees, too many intermediaries. And because it's money, there's a sort of regulatory compliance overhang that makes it extremely costly to operate. You just continue to have these rules and regulations sort of piled onto you as you try to operate, and how do you handle that? And fourthly, and sort of most important, the industry is about pushing products. What it's trying to do is grow the amount of money it's managing because it earns fees. So it's interested in selling products. It's not interested in whether they're good for the client. What other industries in the world have figured out is you need to move towards generating solutions for clients, not just flogging products. Asset management, not yet. It's still all about how do you sell products to grow as much assets under management so I maximize the fees. In all those words I just said, the client is not mentioned once. You're not talking about client value at all. So that's the discussion. In our particular space is to start it with how do we link investors to those sort of more interesting emerging managers, hedge fund managers, because that's kind of the hardest place to go, also gives the most leverage. Why would we do this? Well, there's a few reasons. We get better performance for investors through access to, going to come shortly, is it? Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Used with the two screens. Now, what do we do? So we operate a platform. So we're in the middle. On one side, we use connectivity to connect to our emerging manager hedge fund partners. On the other side, we have portal access for our investors so they can see sort of in real time what's going on. And we have kind of API connectivity to different service providers. The key idea, the key differentiator here is we are moving this industry from a physical model, EDFs, Excels, emailing, calling, go and visit the office to see if the office is really there, to a digital model, to just information streams, kind of like the matrix. So in this case, we don't take money and give it out to our hedge fund partners, because then we sort of lose control. What happens to that money? Are their processes any good? Rather than give the money out, we actually take their trading signals and strategies in to us. So what that means is our investor money never leaves our platform, so it stays safely. Our partners send their trading strategies to us, we execute, so we now have full transparency and visibility on what's happening. We haven't sent the money out and we're wondering what they're doing. So, you know, the general idea, digital operating model is moving from a physical space to a digital space. Kind of why would we do that? There's sort of some general benefits: performance through access to managers, more safety because the capital doesn't leave our kind of controlled environment. Digital models can be much more efficient, so the costs and the intermediaries get stripped out. We start to remove those costs. We can move to a different fee model. We can move to a performance-only fee model. We're only paid if we're delivering positive performance for investors. You know, the rest of the industry is they get paid regardless of performance. And they sort of have to get paid regardless of performance because their infrastructure is costly. So they need to charge fees just to keep this creaky stuff running. Digital models are clearly more transparent. We can give our investors real-time views on exactly what's happening to their money, not at the end of the month. Let me give you a snapshot of what happened over the last month. And more fundamentally, digital models can improve things in terms of being better, faster, cheaper, right? But the real step change comes from allowing you to create a new business model for operating. It's not just being more efficient with the existing processes, it's saying actually we can rearrange and reshuffle how we do things generally. And that is the kind of step change from moving to a digital operating model that has proper impact. So there's sort of, we'll call them engines just to make it easier to communicate. On the sort of left side, there's the sort of API access to our partners' return stream. So the information is kind of streaming in. But then we have sort of three engines that I'll go through in a little bit more detail in the subsequent 3 slides. There's a rules engine to try to address the compliance problem. How do we stay on top of the hundreds and hundreds of pages of changing regulations that the regulator keeps on requiring us to be compliant with? Then how do we scale? How do I create solutions for investors where I don't have to keep on hiring more people to sort of manage those solutions? So we need to sort of automate decision making and almost create solutions like objects, right? So in a sort of object-oriented framework, each new fund or solution or vehicle should be sort of self-contained, and I should be able to sort of spin up and replicate without having to hire more people and without them having to sort of link into the main body of the business. And the third one is customization. If you now have digital information streams coming in, rather than the normal industry where they create a product, here's my fund, take it or leave it, and you might say, oh, I like it, but I wonder if it could be a little bit different. Cannot. This is it. With information streams, you can start to customize kind of upfront, but also dynamically over time. The customer might say, this is great, but I don't need Japan exposure because I have Japan exposure. We can switch that off. And in 6 months, they say, can I add some commodity? Okay, we can. So you start to move, digital operating models start to allow you to move to give you the ability to customize solutions for investors. So I'll just go through the 3 engines: rules engine, decision engine, customization engine. The rules engine is solving the compliance problem. In Singapore, we have 88 documents of up to 100 plus pages that as a fund manager we need to be compliant with. And so how do funds and banks, but in asset management, how do asset managers deal with this? They hire a head of compliance, they build big compliance teams, they write compliance manuals, they try to get their staff to read the compliance manuals. The staff never read the compliance manuals. You're sort of hoping the staff keep remembering to do all the things that are somehow embedded in the rules. So they can never say that they are compliant. It's always a sort of after the fact catch up. Try to sort of reverse engineer documents to show that you sort of maybe were compliant, but you're not. So rather than this, I would call it this human intermediated route, where you kind of go from rules and regulations through a lot of people and consultants to your processes and what you're doing. And technology people, we can do it digitally. So we can use a bit of natural language programming to decompose that text-based set of rules into a series of sort of regulatory obligations. You must send this report in by this date, and then link them through essentially a matrix, a reference matrix, to our process map, to the map of all the processes that we use to run our business. Right, so this, a digital operating model means the first thing we sort of have to do to be digital is to actually map out our process. And then we can automate the ones. I know some will stay a little bit manual because it's hard to automate everything, but you map the processes out, then you automate the processes, you have a process map, you can link them to the regulations. We can now, with this model, stay compliant. So if the regulation changes, the government, the MAS says, oh, now it needs to be this, we know through our reference matrix, through the process and where it's implemented, what we need to change. If we don't have that, which is every other firm out there, you're just trying to figure it out as you go. And so what tends to happen is the rules and what your requirements are get embedded straight into the software, and then you're stuck. You can't change. You need this kind of loose coupling of a process map to keep control. So this is what we call the rules engine, and it solves this compliance problem. It means that we can talk about being continuously and affirmatively compliant with the full exhaustive set of regulations at any time. And here are the deliverable documents that prove this process is running, that links through this matrix to the regulatory obligations, which is. So this is like, we are bleeding edge of bleeding edge stuff. Now we want to scale. I don't want to just offer this to half a dozen large firms. I want to increasingly go down to smaller and smaller pools of money, eventually to the retail investor. We're currently still only accredited investors, because we're, work in progress, but how do you do that? You have to start to build a way to handle what turns out to be sort of sequential decisions. So if we think about it, in any business, I'm one end deciding which strategies maybe I want to have involved with. I have a solution, a product. This product is selecting which strategies. So you first say, which strategies do I want in my sort of possible set of strategies? This solution says, which strategies do I want in my solution? Another decision is, how should I allocate capital between those strategies? How do I risk control? How do I engage with my investor? So all these are kind of sequential decisions kind of happening through time. Now, how do you optimize that? How do you systematically optimize that? You cannot. It's just too complex. So instead, you start to move to this sequential decision-making framework where you talk about having the idea of state. State captures the information that is available to you on any particular day. And you have the day before, the state that was available then, and the day before, and the day before, and the day before. You can then historically work through that state, which is the state part up here. As you start to try to search for decision policies, you're trying to move humans out of it, right? As far as you can. You don't want to have an investment committee that sits there and goes, I like that guy, why don't we do that? you want to reduce it to a kind of more mechanistic policy. But how do you search and find those policies? Well, you can sort of define them if then, work through state. As you move through time, you get new information, and so you can update your state. There's a sort of transition function which updates the state to the next day, but then you kind of have this contribution or loss function that is your sort of objective function that says, okay, let's try to either maximize or minimize this to help identify robust decision policies that best deliver value for your customer, right? So we can build a business model that is structurally built to where the objective function is customer value creation. What is the contribution function that we have over here? We can build that around that for customers. The third part is the least developed. We sort of know where we're going, but we haven't got very far with this. This is this idea of how do we move from selling products to engaging with the customer to create solutions? How do we bring information in and build solutions that sort of dynamically best meet what their requirements are? And the best I can say here is what you're trying to move away from is the robo-advisors. I will say something like, tell me your risk preference. Are you high risk, low risk, medium risk? You're like, what does that mean? How does that help me? What I need over here, which is to put my son through school and make sure I can eat till I die. So instead you can start to use a different approach, which is to build more probabilistic models, a probabilistic programming framework, where you can start to talk to your clients about your likelihood of achieving your goals. So what's your likelihood of achieving your hard goals? You can eat. And what are the likelihoods of you achieving your aspirational goals? You can take holidays 3 times a year, flying business class. And how should I be sort of deciding how to allocate wealth between those? But your conversation point is likelihoods of achieving goals, not what is your risk preference. And it kind of comes down from the availability of the information in here. So this is basically what we're trying to do. The future of asset management cannot be, I try to sell as much product so that my staff have large bonuses. It's got to be, how do I best create customized solutions that meet investor needs in a dynamic way, both now and into the future. That is kind of it.
Thank you very much. And we recognize the great use of Excalidraw,
Exactly.
which is a great tool for drawing collaborative and
it's like I just wrote it down as I was on the way here.
We have time for one question. Yep.
So just now you mentioned to sort of check in with like your clients, their investment goals. Does that mean there's going to be like one-to-one direction?
So the industry is, who are the big asset managers? It's those very large firms that you know, Fidelity, Schroders and stuff, and they're basically giant branding and marketing machines. Because what they're just trying to do is get their name in front of you, and you then say, well, I don't know what to buy, but I'll buy that Schroders fund. What we need to do is kind of make it interactive. So sort of an engagement, you can think of portals, you can think of sort of, let me start to even learn with you, almost co-create a solution that starts to fit. So you've got to move towards having a dynamic operating model, not just to build it once here in a year, but an operating model where you can talk to them about, okay, the market's changing like this, volatility is moving like this, there are new investment opportunity sets, your needs might be changing, you might find something's happened in your life, so this is changing. So it has to move kind of towards that sort of more dynamic, interactive. So UX and how do we kind of properly work with these and provide that sort of thing. And also talking in a way that's relevant for them, right? What's the likelihood of me being able to eat for the rest of my life? I want that to be not 60%, I want it to be 95%. And that then adjusts what my aspirational goals can be and what other things I can do. So there's sort of more to do, and that's a kind of whole undeveloped space. But yeah, we want to, and you can still have people. So it may be that there are people, intermediaries, last mile sort of touch thing, but you need to even give them the ability to dynamically create and work with solutions rather than just here's a set of products, right? How do you choose from the 10,000 US equity products?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.